Mate, how you
How's it going?
doing?
Yeah, I gotta
Just
adjust your
adjusting my
cue. There
picture
we
here.
go. Top of our head. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Just had a quick lunch break, took the dog out for a walk, and got a snack in. I'm happy to be
I'm
here
doing
chatting with
good.
you.
I'm
How are
doing
you, man?
good. I was on the road all week last week talking with folks, and I'm feeling really energized as we enter Eating Disorder Awareness Week now. Yeah.
Mm,
So
cool.
this is called
Yeah.
coffee chats here in the U.S., but I'm sure over by you this would be tea time right about now, right?
I, I thought about brewing a coffee just before this call because I wanted to be, really awake and everything. And I thought, do I need another coffee at this time of the afternoon? I'm probably all right.
Yeah, see, I'm a
So,
decaf kind of
yeah,
guy.
man.
I can't have caffeinated coffee, otherwise I'm bouncing off the walls. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, I went through certain phases when I like dialed back my coffee intake
Mhm.
and caffeine intake like heaps,
Yeah.
and it all just creeps back in
It's
for
some
me.
good stuff.
Mm,
What can we do? Well, thank you so
yeah, man.
much for joining us today. This is the start of Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and here at ANID, we're excited to bring on different folks throughout the week to share their stories, their experiences, and talk a little bit more about what this week's theme means with It's Time for Change. So today we've got Marcus Kain, who we go way back now. I feel like
Yeah,
yeah, we've done
yeah,
this
for a
several
while
times
now.
now. So, Marcus, go ahead, introduce yourself to everyone. Let us know a little bit about your story and what you're up to now.
Sure. Well, Jason, thank you so much for having me. My name is Marcus Kain. I'm essentially a nutrition coach, and I specialize in working with people struggling with binge eating disorder. So I do my best to help people see the difference between an eating disorder and disordered eating. Obviously, some people come to me in different kind of places. Like some people are definitely struggling with an eating disorder. Other people are more just stuck in cycles of disordered eating. No matter where someone is on that spectrum, I always find that it helps to shine some light on exactly where that might be because that's going to affect the course of action, like moving forward, and what might be appropriate for different people and what options they have. So that's essentially what I'm doing now. I came to this place after 15 years of struggling with disordered eating and eating disorders of varying degrees and types in my own journey. It started off with just going down a pretty deep rabbit hole in terms of diet and fitness and attaching my self
Mhm.
worth to how I looked. And it just kind of escalated from there. It was like that slow boil kind of situation where it felt like one day I was just, you know, starting to get fit and healthy and interested in dieting and set up a home gym for myself. And then before I knew it, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety surrounding food, things that escalated to the point where social occasions, I couldn't go to any kind of social event without overthinking what I was eating on a massive level. Yeah, a lot of anxiety, a lot of relationships were kind of like ruined. Like I wasn't able to be present. I wasn't able to function as just like a happy, balanced member of any given friendship group or relationship because I was just so hyper focused on my diet and looking the right way and am I doing everything right, and all it would take would be a weekend away with access to different foods or not the right foods for me to be all of a sudden just freaking out about what I was putting in my body and the effects that that would have. And yeah, it was just a really slippery slope. And I see a lot of people struggling with that now. And when I went into the health and fitness industry in my late teens and early 20s, I went in with the idea of like, right, I'm going to help people. And I started off as a remedial massage therapist, thinking, I can help people with pain and recovery with their training and everything like that. after a while of doing that, I was like, this isn't where the main problem is. I mean, sure, it's a great skill to have, and it's great to be able to do this, but I kept thinking, if people maybe treated their body a little bit differently, maybe they wouldn't need to come in quite so often for massage and physio and tune-ups. So I then went from there into personal training, and from personal training I was like, people are getting injured all the time. So then I upskilled again and went into like rehab training, like rehabbing injuries. And as I was kind of pulling on this thread, like trying to find the kind of root cause of most people's pain and how to help most people, I eventually landed on, well, food. Like everyone just continually is struggling with food. Like I was struggling in my own relationship with food. And I just kept pulling on that thread. And here I am now working with people struggling with binge eating and helping people overcome that. So yeah, it's been a really
Yeah, it's
interesting
one of
journey.
those things where I don't think we realize just how much diet culture has a hold on us as a society, and where we think that we're doing the right things for our bodies and we're doing the healthy thing, but it becomes an obsession and it gets in the way of happiness, and it starts to take a toll on our physical bodies in addition to our mental health and our social health and all of that. Because that's what I experienced with my orthorexia, is that I was convinced that I was doing the right thing and taking care of my body. But in actuality, I was doing one of the most unhealthy things I could possibly be doing. So what you see when you talk to different clients, or when you're just out there talking with fellow nutrition coaches, what kind of pushback do you get from diet culture still, where people are just so convinced that what they're being told to do is the right thing? What kind of pushback are you getting when you come in then with your, refined approach to it, your different approach to nutrition and health?
Sure. I think what the diet industry has done exceptionally well is convince people of the idea that if they were to change their physical appearance, literally their entire life will change. They'll be happier, they'll be more fulfilled, they'll get the job they want, they'll whatever. It's like the diet industry kind of paints this image of like everything is better
Mm-hmm.
when you win at your diet. And we've bought that. Like so many of us have swallowed that message, like no pun intended, like hook, line, and sinker. And where our values are placed, what we think makes us valuable as human beings, it's not that I think that we shouldn't care at all about our appearance or how we look, because we're human, we have emotions, we're invested in these things. But the pushback that I get most is essentially coming from the fact that people are
Mm-hmm.
overvaluing size and shape to the point where it's completely disproportionate, like to the point where it's just like this big overshadowing thing. And I think the diet industry has played a huge part in that, in selling the idea of a diet, selling the idea of maybe weight loss as this thing that's just put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And we've bought that idea. We many of us grew up with that idea, and not many of us question it until we find ourselves in really deep water. So that's the pushback I get. It's like when I say, like, are you sure that's, how do you know that this is going to make you happy though? Like this diet, what you're doing, um, is it really worth it? And so many people are so convinced, oh, absolutely, yeah. If I can just get there, if I can just get to that target weight or be optimally healthy or whatever, that's the goal. And it takes a lot of insight and reflection and
Yeah.
coaching to get
Yeah,
through that
it's one of
sometimes.
those things where, like, when I was big into dieting, I would reach that what I thought was going to be that magic number, but it was never enough, and it was never enough. So it's just this goal that keeps going on and on and on. And one of the things that we do here at ANID is we encourage people to ask themselves the question, is this interfering with my happiness? Is this interfering with my relationships? Is this starting to interfere with my day-to-day life? And I think that's the point when this want to take care of ourselves and to be healthy and to diet, that's when it becomes too much, is when it starts to take that toll on your social and emotional health. Because a world where
Mhm.
physical health seems prioritized way above everything else, and we need to just redefine what healthy means. We need to make sure that we're including all of those different aspects. One of the things that comes to mind is I think about back in the day when it used to be the cigarette advertisements that were how you were going to be happy and popular and all of that. And it's like those have been replaced now by diet culture, where they're selling us the same thing, where do this and you're going to be happy, you're going to be healthy, you're going to be successful in your career and all of that. And it's the farthest thing from the truth. But I'm sure for people who are joining us right now, they're going, what the heck are two guys talking about eating disorders right now? Like, this just doesn't really happen too often. So I'm curious, I've got a great question here, and it's just, why aren't more guys talking about this? And what can we do to finally get men to speak up about eating disorders?
Okay, I've got an opinion on this,
Okay.
and it's a little bit rough, a little bit blunt, and it's just something that I suspect. Um, right now, the diet industry is doing a much better job of speaking to the values of most men than what we could call the disordered eating or eating disorder recovery space is. This is where, like, and I'm a part of this space. I'm in the eating disorder recovery space, and it's a difficult thing for me to acknowledge sometimes. And I'm sure, I'm not sure how many people would agree. So I might be just kind of walking the plank here, but I feel like right now, um, in the eating disorder kind of recovery space, we're not quite capturing men's values and speaking to men's values quite as well as we could be. We're almost like taking the template that we've used to speak to women for a long period of time and just kind of like going, spinning it just slightly and going, all right,
Mhm.
men, you should listen to this too. And most are listening to that message and on a surface level going, that doesn't describe me at all. That doesn't resonate with me at all. I understand that works for women, and I'm really happy that they're doing something about that because, yeah, women who struggle with eating disorders deserve help. But
Right.
that message doesn't resonate with me. Um, I think, that's a really rough one because, it's tough. Like, where do we start with that? I think, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
wondering
I'm
what
right
your
there
thoughts
with
are
you.
on
I
that.
was immediately thinking back about the first support group that I attended, and it was all females. And even though we were all experiencing an eating disorder, so we had similar experiences, I couldn't truly relate to anybody in that room. I felt isolated. I
Yeah.
felt alone because, again, the values were different there. The gender norms I had grown up with, and the values as a guy were different. I would say some of the factors that contributed to my eating disorder differed from those of women and those of female gender. So it's definitely one of those things where I do think that we need to speak more to men. We need to have conversations like this to understand what is driving these eating disorders in men. Why aren't they speaking up about it? Because men face a completely different stigma when it comes to mental health and eating disorders. It's like there's already a stigma that exists around mental health in general. And then as a guy, it just adds a whole nother layer onto it. And when I started talking about this, I worried that I was going to be lesser of a man. I thought I was going to be inferior or come across as weak. And that was extremely scary to do, which is why the eating disorder recovery world, I needed somewhere where I felt inclusive. And at first, when I was looking around and just seeing nothing but females everywhere, it was one of those things where I felt really isolated, and it made me feel almost more alone than it did when I was suffering in silence.
Yeah, I hear what you just described in terms of your, first experience, like reaching out, going to a group. That resonates with me very much. Like I went to a group at one point, and I kind of showed up, and you know what? Everyone was lovely. Like everyone was really nice. It's not like anyone was nasty to me or anything like that. It was like that I went there, and I kind of felt like none of the things being talked about really. I felt like I was a
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was a guest. I felt like I was kind of walking in, like I didn't feel like I should be there.
No.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was
It,
something that was,
it reminded
yeah,
me of how
designed.
different I was. I think it was a reminder that I am different, that I am not like others. And then it makes you think, are people looking at me differently? And I deal with that all the time as an eating disorder recovery advocate, where people, this is Jason, he's
Mm.
a male recovering from an eating disorder. And it's like, I can't wait until the day where I can just be somebody recovering from an eating disorder. I hate that I have to specify that I'm a man doing this, but right now there just isn't a lot of talk out there like this. So I have to kind of blaze that trail, I guess you could say.
And thank you for doing that, man. Like, I've been following your work since you released your book, and I think your work is absolutely brilliant. And, I'm always super grateful to see people like you doing this and, blazing that trail and leading from the front. Because right now, in at this point in time, we're going to have to work through a certain period of time where it's like, no, we will be introduced as, and he's a
Yeah.
man, and it's like, okay, yeah, cool, that's all right. Like that's how we're introduced right now. Let's roll with it. Let's have the conversations so that in future
Exactly.
maybe that won't be a
Exactly.
factor.
That's what I'm hoping for. And as we get ready to wrap up here today, the theme for Eating Disorder Awareness Week is it's time for change. And I think I already know the answer to this question because we've just been talking about it. But what is the one thing you would like to see change? Where can we be the change this year when it comes to raising awareness and providing resources and support for those who need it?
Mm. I would say getting people through the door or inviting people through the door is one of the hardest parts. So, in light of that, I would say less polarization and more nuance in terms of social media space. We've got so much attention grabbing, emotive, let's say, content out there that's designed to be a kind of shock value, that's designed to be punchy, that's designed to get eyes on it. And of course, that's kind of the nature of social media. But when people are setting out to make content about this particular topic, and it's designed with the intention to be polarizing, it has this effect where it gets the people who are already on board to double down on what they already believe, and the people who might need that message, who aren't quite there yet, get pushed away further because the nature of polarization just divides. So that's what I would say. I think in getting the message out there, I would suggest that we need to be a little bit more, unfortunately, more critical of some of the content out there and a little bit more constructive in terms of making sure that we're not aiming to be
Yeah.
polarizing, we're aiming
I
to
could
be
not
inclusive.
agree with that statement more. And for those of you who are watching right now, I highly recommend following Marcus there on social media because you post some excellent content. You post that content that connects people. It doesn't pull people apart or polarize people. It brings people together and it makes them feel inclusive. You were one of the accounts that I first started following in recovery, and you were extremely helpful for me. And really thank you so much for the work that you do and for joining us today. And this is probably only the start of the conversation. We have a lot of programming coming up here at ANA this spring for men in eating disorders. So hopefully we'll have a chance to connect here again soon and keep this conversation going. But again, thank you so much for joining us today.
100%, Jason.
All
Thank you so
right,
much
well,
for
take
having
care.
me anytime.
All right.
You too, man. Bye.